Hello there, and welcome to another slice of the good, the bad, and the orange. Today is a special day. We have celebrities, at least in the Orange Vortex. We have with us Director of Operations and Business Development, Shane Jackson. Also our announcer.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Straight to the point. And then I have my, I would say, esteemed sidekick, the supreme leader, CEO, grand poobah of this whole global organization, Amanda Forshee, who said, I don't want to be on here behind the scenes. And I said, please. I sent one of those little gifts that said, please. So they're here because they are both experts in certain fields. One, taxation and hockey. The other, drinking. So anyhow, we're going to talk a little bit about foreign investment and some of the hurdles and implications that are attributed to that, as well as I think a very fascinating fact about Arizona is its wine country in more detail. Amanda and her husband Eric are connoisseurs and collectors to some extent and have traveled the wineries of Arizona, the vast wineries in an RV.
Active samplers as well.
Active yes. Samplers.
Obviously.
They have little plastic cups. They have they have tumblers or sippy cups.
Lanyards.
Lanyards.
I mean, we don't wear them around, that's just for special occasions.
That's when your hands don't work anymore. You just wear the lanyard. So with that, I don't know which one of you really want to start, but I think we'll start with our Saskatoon native.
Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
And if you watch
Paris of the prairies, as they say.
Paris. Well, that's where Patrick is.
City of Bridges,
That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And bunny hugs.
Bunny hugs.
Sorry, that's a
yes. If anybody can define what a bunny hug is, it's the only place on earth where a bunny hug is called a bunny hug. So anyways. The Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act.
Hey Shane, we're going to have you lift your arms up because you're shaking the table.
Because I'm so nervous.
Well, I know you. Well, you're not. But you're a speaker. You're our trained radio voice. Go ahead.
Which is affectionately known as FIRPTA. Basically, is a capital gains tax that foreigners pay when they sell their properties here in the United States. I'd like to preface all this by saying this information is provided by me for informational purposes only. So I'll always seek professional advice.
An asterisk.
Yeah, exactly. So capital gains tax, you can't take the money and run. There's a withholding, and then you need to file with the IRS to get your money back per se, and there's a lot of moving parts that goes along with that. Basically, all the transactions that I do involve this, so it can get quite interesting in how it all works out at the end.
I had clients actually who were Swiss and went through that whole ordeal. And ironically, what was sad is they had a loss because they bought at the peak of the previous peak of the market and sold at a dip in the market. But they still withheld the, I believe it was 20%. Is that correct?
Between 0 and 300,000. It's 0%, but there's a caveat with that. Between 300 and a million, it's 10, and then a million and above, it's 15.
So it's 10%.
If the buyer is going to use the property as investment, it's 15 across the board. It doesn't matter if it's worth $1 or $10 million. Some of the things that people don't know is that the person that has to hold this money is the buyer, believe it or not. But the way things work in Arizona is everything's done through an escrow company. So the escrow company will take the 10% or whatever needs to be withheld, and within 20 days we'll get that money to the IRS. And then at the end of the year, the buyer will fill out a form and just to say, hey, yeah, I sent this in and everything will be fine. So it gets all taken care of from a buyer's perspective. So there's no reason for any buyer to be afraid of approaching these properties because nothing's going to happen.
And there is sometimes this fear of they have an obligation or they have to do extra paperwork, but it's literally all done at the close of escrow.
Exactly.
And then the escrow company handles all that. So not a hurdle. You're right.
The main thing that where you will need professional or an accountant or somebody that specializes in these things is once they've withheld your money and sent it to the IRS, now you've had a taxable event. Up until that time, you can't get an ITIN number, so you couldn't get the ball rolling with filing your taxes even if you wanted to because you haven't had a taxable event. So
isn't Iton one of those Greek gods?
That's his older brother, Titan.
Oh, Titan.
Yeah. And typically they hold way too much money than required because there's exemptions for married couples and there's this and there's that and there's all this other stuff. But you don't get that money back until you actually file your tax return, and that could take up to, depending on the time of the year this all happens, it could take up to 18 months to get your money back.
So it's something that Canadians or foreign investors would need to obviously take into account when they're selling, especially with a gain. If they don't, it's just their money tied up.
Right. So I just had a situation where the property should have listed around 310-ish, 320. So if it lists for 300 and the buyer is going to use it as a personal residence, well, then they're exempt, right? So there's no withholding. They take their check and go back to Canada and they're done. If it's sold for 310, well, then the escrow company will send $31,000 to the IRS. Now they got to get it back. So they got to wait 18 months-ish, file taxes, get an ITIN, hire people. And at the end of the day, they just didn't think it was worth it to lose that money for that amount of time and whatever it took to get it back. They just took the money and got out of Dodge. So, but yeah, there is a withholding certificate where you do your homework prior. They still hold the money, so they still send the money into the IRS. But now you've got the certificate that says, "Hey, here's the deal," and you get it back quicker. The thing I've heard is with withholding certificates is they're awfully hard to get started because you have to know you're going to sell at a certain time period. You can't just go, oh, I feel like selling in a month, because you won't have the withholding certificate done. So I've actually never been involved in a situation where there is a withholding certificate, but and I think it's for that reason, because they're kind of a crapshoot.
But it's another reason to have a real estate professional guide you when you're a foreign seller, because they are the ones that will know who they should contact and how to navigate those little intricacies of
Those FIRPTA waters, as they say.
FIRPTA waters. Is that kind of like the Arctic waters?
No. It's a
Okay,
little
well,
warmer than that.
isn't Saskatoon on the shores of the Arctic Ocean?
Saskatoon is on the shores of the mighty South Saskatchewan River, one of the only north-flowing rivers in North America. I believe I've lived on both of them, the Willamette River in Oregon and the South Saskatchewan in Saskatchewan.
And he knew how to pronounce Willamette.
I didn't say Willamette.
I would say he's the Canadian Cliff Clay
Yeah,
right now.
useless knowledge. But no, going back real quick before I forget, I have 3 different accountants that all they do are FIRPTA transactions, and those are the people, the referrals I give out to my clients and say, hey, you pick. I stay out of a lot of that because I'm not qualified to give that sort of advice, and I get out of it as fast as I can and let them deal with those professionals that specialize in that. So it's all good.
Fabulous. Well, Speaking of things that make you drink, IRS, FIRPTA,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Canada,
yeah,
hockey.
right.
We've talked a little bit briefly in our other podcasts about Arizona wine country. And so I thought, let's dive into that further. I know that I've posted something on our Facebook group, private Facebook group, Moving to Arizona, the real one.
Yes, thank you for the, he did my homework for me.
Well, see, I'm giving. We get a lot of people ask about that, because the thought is it's just cactus wine or it's something, prickly pear wine, and it's going to be really sweet and gross. But it's all the magic of the soils and the weather and the elevation. And you are a geologist in a way because you drink wine. So what do you think? Tell us the most interesting piece you found in your wine explorations. I mean, what surprised you?
It's all interesting. I didn't know that Arizona grew as much wine as we do. There are at least 120 vineyards now in Arizona. There are 3 main wine growing regions. The biggest is Wilcox, so that's the southernmost point, kind of. I think it's pretty far south, right on the Mexican border. That's where most of the vineyards are located. Then there is Sonoyta Elgin, which is about halfway between Wilcox and Tucson.
I have to say, Sandy Grotto, hello. I know you're in Wilcox drinking wine right now. She owns a ranch down there. I'm sorry, there you go.
Ann Sullivan's from Wilcox, too.
That's
from
right,
that area. Yeah.
The Ann Sullivan from Long Realty Corporate.
Wow.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a big sign, home of Ann Sullivan?
Yeah, I think there is on the exit.
There might be.
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but I mean, there's not much else in.
It was dark. It was dark.
There is really not much in Wilcox. If you are going to Wilcox, definitely assign a designated driver because you will need it. It's a lot of driving, and that's it. That's it. There's nothing else there. So Sonoyta Elgin, that's actually a little bit more of a fun driving trip. You still need a DD because it's a lot of driving. And then the third wine growing region is the Verde Valley, which is about an hour and a half north of where we are here in Scottsdale, just south of Sedona, 30 minutes. And then there's a few others. I was looking on here on the Arizona Wine Growers Association website, which is a great reference. They're considering the mavericks and the pioneers. So like the people that are growing wine out in Chino Valley and Young and Kingman and Williams. So it's really growing.
Is that another developing area, or is that considered?
They're just other wineries,
Okay.
just other vineyards, people starting to grow and make wine.
So your palate, of course, is quite extensive and is sampled
complex.
You enjoy the nose on some of these. If somebody blindfolded you, let's just say, and there was something from California and something from Arizona, is there that big of a difference in terms of taste and all that sort of stuff?
It depends on the varietal. If it was a big, buttery Napa Cabernet Sauvignon, then yeah, you can definitely tell a difference. Arizona does not do a lot of Cabernet Sauvignons yet. They are growing some, and they're getting there, but if you like the Napa, the Arizona, or not the California cabs, Arizona is probably not going to be the one for you for cabs. They specialize mostly in the Rhone varietals, so the wines that grow in the Rhone Valley. So Grenaches, Syrahs, Petite Syrahs, Viogniers, Cinsaults, Peak Pools.
Peak Pools. If I still drank, I would just want to drink that for the name. Pools. I don't even know what that is.
Yes, and they're very good at them. So actually, my favorite varietal of Arizona wine is the Syrah, and I was never a big Syrah fan. Yeah. You can tell the difference between a Syrah that's grown in like the Australian style. You can tell the difference between the ones that are in California and Arizona. I prefer Arizona Syrahs.
Wow.
That's overwhelming.
Arizona, you mentioned Willamette
That's a
Valley.
validation.
It's absolutely a validation. We have some great Syrahs here. Willamette Valley, Oregon, is known for their Pinot Noirs, and we actually have a few different vineyards here in Arizona that are growing Pinot Noir grapes, they're a tricky grape. They're very small, tight clusters, so they're, prone to disease and rot, and so they're just tricky to grow. So are Chardonnays.
When I was a kid, I played Oregon Trail, and we went through the Willamette Valley. That was the victory. That was the victory. If you got there, you didn't get shot by arrows, and
It's not politically correct to call them what you're going to call them.
Was that Atari?
No, that was
Pre-Atari?
That was pre-Atari. Yes, it was, and it just I felt like I could contribute to the wine conversation because of Oregon Trail.
Well, we are getting a few really good Pinot Noirs here too, which is very impressive for Arizona. So kudos, Arizona wine growers, for that.
Do you think is the wine industry here growing?
Absolutely.
And
it's growing and it's being noticed. So
that's even more
10 years ago, we used to go up to the Verde Valley and in the RV and just we would just spend the weekend visiting all of these different wineries and talking to the winemakers. You can still do that because they're still pretty small. And it was great, and it was kind of like our little hidden secret. But now you go up there, and it is very busy. So it has been discovered, and you're seeing a lot more people. I'm running into people from the valley up there, which we didn't do that before. It was kind of like an escape.
Would you like to own a vineyard?
Fellow cork dorks.
Cork dorks.
No, because I am not a farmer. I've never been a farmer. I think it's very interesting, but no, I am not. That's not me there.
Well, okay. So you would rather be the end user.
Right. So, yes, exactly. I'll be the tester.
So do you think property values in those areas obviously must be increasing if there's more wine production and it becomes more of a commerce, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've been kicking myself for the past several years. Asked my husband, we should have purchased something up there before it became well known.
Well, I understand. Shane, you and I aren't wine drinkers anymore, but you're married to a wine drinker. So am I. So does that give you any peripheral insight into this wine? No.
What I used to enjoy was the California Cab, so I'm a little bit. I can't really speak to the varietals that she talked about, but the good news is it seems to be getting more popular and putting themselves on the map, which is always good.
Yeah, we had an event. What was it, 2 years ago? The Pinot Pause and Portraits.
That's right.
At Terra Vita, and we had some skeptical people because it was all Pinot. So we did one Pinot Noir and one Pinot Grigio. It was actually a Pinot Grigio blend for the white drinkers. And
can you say that?
Why? I think so.
I'm just checking. I'm just checking.
Yes.
Jasmine, can we say that?
I think so.
Okay, all right. Jasmine says we can say the white drinkers. Okay.
Okay, so anyway, so people were very skeptical about Arizona Pinot Noirs, and I think we can blew them all away with this one Arizona Pinot Noir. It was from Bodega Pierce, Verde Valley. They're down in Wilcox too.
Yay.
Yes, fantastic Pinot Noir. But it's just everyone that comes here is skeptical at first. They're like, Arizona wine. They're thinking of the Florida wine. They go down there, it's like strawberry kiwi. It's not like that. It's very, very good.
Up in Minnesota, they make that strawberry rhubarb. We buy it our own.
Ice wine.
Yeah.
Ice wine.
Ice wine, yeah.
That's in Canada too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's good stuff.
All right, and so no other thoughts? I don't have any. I know that Roseanne likes, what's the big winery up in north of Cottonwood? What is it?
Page Springs?
Page Springs, yes.
Page Springs, DA Ranch, Javelina Leap, and what used to be Oak Creek.
Holy cow.
They're all on the same strip, like right on that same road. So yeah, that's a great place to go.
Wino Row.
Yeah.
You missed your calling.
And then if you go to like Old Town Cottonwood, just on Main Street, there are at least 6 tasting rooms, and that goes into spreads into Clarkdale and up the mountain to Jerome.
I know I've seen Jerome. You can walk the streets of the ghost mining town, and between the tchotchke shops and the wine tasting rooms, they're all there. So there you go.
Yeah.
Another reason. Then you can drive the winding roads back after you've tasted wine all afternoon in Jerome, and hopefully you don't go off the cliff.
Yes. Or get a designated driver.
That designated driver. So who do you hire?
There are places, and there are getting to be more. Yeah, you can rent a bus. You can,
Wow.
yeah,
Should do that.
limos. I've
You know,
seen a few
Shane and
pulled
I,
over.
we could do that.
Yeah.
We could be wino designated driver.
Put a hat
Get a
on.
hat.
But
Yeah.
did you sell that van?
I still got, but you know what? That van would be a little bit
Let's get
more.
some tin snips and cut some
Yeah, it's got some
windows.
windows in. Otherwise, it would look like one of those vans that are transporting things you're not supposed to transport,
Oh, your van. Yeah.
or fertilizer headed towards a public building or something. But
Yeah. So
Well,
that.
I've always found it's like we keep talking about Arizona, and I've known there's wine country, and I've known there's Canadians here, but the more I learn about each, the more fascinated I become about Arizona in general. Because just think about that. We can have regular Arizonans, we can have swirl cactus, we can have Canadians, we can have wine. I mean, there's really, the sky is the limit here in Arizona, I think. And if Taylor were here, he'd say, sky's the limit, there must be UFOs. But he's not.
And donkeys.
And donkeys. So I think we'll wrap that up a little bit. I was going to talk a little bit about the market. You both are involved as well. I know Amanda is getting ready to put a listing on in Paradise Valley, which is actually the top market right now in the Phoenix metro area. Surprisingly, it's been increasing. The thing that's interesting is how we have gone into such a balanced market, and there's so many people that don't know what that is. But I think something that sums it up, and some positives that we're seeing, is that this increase in inventory. So, since beginning of end of May, we saw inventory just skyrocket, and we saw demand plummet, and so it brought us back to normal very quickly. But the gains in inventory have basically stopped; they flattened out, and as we're starting to come into our busy season, which didn't exist was all year round before. Now we're going to go back into more of a normal October through April being the winter busy season. We're seeing it's going to be a great time for buyers. Everyone thinks, well, rates are high or this or that, but right now, one of the benefits we've seen in the slowing of the market is that we were seeing percent sale price to list price was hovering at 100 or 100.1 or 100.2 or 101% of list price. We've now dropped to 97% of list price on overall a median. And the beautiful thing with that is that 3% coincides with what most typical lenders like to allow for seller paid closing costs. So now we can see people that didn't have a chance to buy in the frenzy, who got frustrated, come in and find a house because there's choices. There's about 19,000 homes on the market right now compared to the low last year of 3,800, which was non-existent. And instead of negotiating price, you negotiate in the ability to buy affordability. And so for those who've been renting, as rents have continued to increase, they've started to slow. The increases started to slow. It gives that opportunity for ownership. And the other thing that it's interesting as we get is our luxury market. So over $3 million, which is the, I guess the super luxury. We're remaining very constant. So listings aren't on a rapid increase, nor did they when everything else ramped up. And while demand slowed, there's still a shortage of inventory in the luxury market. And of course, luxury market isn't so much rate sensitive as they are maybe sensitive to the economic implications of the market. But I think that all bodes well for our real estate market. We see it as a time when normalization, which some of us who've been doing this too long can say this is a good thing. It, as I've said before, buyers can actually think about their decision versus buy now, ask questions later. And sellers have time to also make sure they've got a place to go, and that's really the best it could be. As we were talking to our mortgage people today, they said rates were kind of ugly this week. Well, you got to get ugly before you correct, and most mortgage companies have a refinance at no cost provision in their loans. So lock a rate up, live with it for maybe a year, but they'll let you refi it when the rate drops. And I think those are things people aren't aware of. But when you have a good lender and a good real estate partner who knows a good lender, you've got to think not just about the short term, but the long term. Long term is I'm not just buying a house for today. What am I going to do in a year or 3 years or 5 years so that either I stay here or I bought the property that's right for me and I can stay here a long time. So the market to me is good. We've seen a lot of activity in the last 7 to 10 days in our group, a lot of contracts written, new listings, and really at all price points. What do you think, Shane?
Well, I have a gentleman who just turned 65 like yesterday, literally.
Did you buy him? Did you get him a cake?
He's in Chicago, and he wants to retire down here. And it seems like the 1.5 million-ish range is kind of been a bit slow lately in terms of listings, but I think that's going to pick up.
Well, it's actually one of the markets where the listing count is leveled, but we're at the same level of buyers under contract as we were last year. It's just that we're somewhere around 400 more listings than we had last year at this time. So more choices, buyers just being a little more cautious, but again, we almost match up perfectly with this time last year as far as buyers in that $1.5 million to $3 million range. So tell them to buy. Just do it.
He's going to come down here for a while, a week or 2 or 3, and we're just going to kind of see what happens. But and he's a cash guy, so it's going to be a little bit different. Don't need to worry about rates, but I think if rates are going to improve, what goes up must come down, and this is just going to be it's healthier for everybody. I think.
Well, and I tell you what, the other thing that happens, as we've talked about, those have been who've seen the cycles, is lenders come out with new products, and Mo Hamida with our group just talked today about they're going to have 100% straight up conventional financing. Now, granted, it's unlike the other one, like you said, where it was fog the mirror and you have your dead uncle cosign, but there's products to help people get into houses, and it happens all the time when the market slows. Innovation in finance comes out, and so I think it's a great time to buy. You've got time to research and time to shop for the best mechanism, and you've got the best agents here at the Orange Vortex. Mm-hmm. More than ample supply.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're getting to the end of our time here. I'm sad. But I'd like to thank Shane and Amanda, who willingly or unwillingly decided to participate.